Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are so delighted to have you here. We're going to give people a few moments to go ahead and log in, but a few housekeeping things as we get started. Down at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll see that we do have interpretation available today for English and Bahasa Indonesian. So please click on the little globe at the bottom of your Zoom screen to change your audio, and you can hit the mute original audio to prevent any double noise there. We also welcome you to please introduce yourself in the chat and tell us where you are joining from today, and we will go ahead and get started here just in a few moments. Welcome. Good morning or evening or afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from today. We're delighted to have you here today. We're going to give people a few moments to join, but in the meantime, we would love to hear where you are joining from today. So if you can please introduce yourself in the chat. And also, we do have simultaneous interpretation available for this webinar. And so down at the bottom, you'll see the little globe symbol, this little interpretation symbol. Please go ahead and select that and then select the language that you prefer to listen to the presentations in. And we will get started here in just another moment. Thank you. All right. Welcome, everyone. Good morning and afternoon. I'm so delighted to be here with you all today for our session, Knowledge is Power, Building Capacity for Sustainable Small-Scale Fisheries and Coastal Communities in a Post-COVID Digital World. First of all, a huge thank you to TBTI for creating this space and bringing so many wonderful people and organizations together over the last several days. I hope that you all have been able to tune in to many of the very interesting and engaging sessions. This event is being co-hosted by the World Wildlife Fund, Blue Ventures, and Environmental Defense Fund. My name is Alexis Reif, and I am the Director of Global Small Scale Fisheries Initiatives at EDF, and I will be moderating our event today. And I'm really looking forward to an interesting and engaging conversation. I am joined today by colleagues from Indonesia and the Solomon Islands who will share some of their experiences to support capacity strengthening efforts in partnership with small-scale fishing communities from the Pacific region. I've been thinking a lot how prior to March 2020, to organize exchanges and workshops and learning network events with communities, we traveled a lot by boat, plane, car, etc., in order to be in a room together. And then when the pandemic hit, we all had a moment of, oh gosh, is everything going to stop? Or are we going to do something different? And the fact that we are meeting virtually here today across space and time, and have been for the last year, has really shown how this external influence sparked creativity and innovation in different approaches, drawing from our existing experiences. And this time has raised excitement about the possibility that technology offers to be able to reach far-flung small-scale fishing communities and really permit their exchange of knowledge and experiences. And along the way, we've definitely learned some lessons. So today, I'm excited to hear and learn more about what we have been capable of, and then discuss the opportunity that lays before us to take advantage of these new approaches to be more impactful in supporting small-scale fishing communities. So the questions that we want to tackle are, how can we take local models of proven success and create tools and virtual spaces to effectively reach different groups at different scales and across different models of learning? How do we enable exchange and learning networks and communities of practice to further strengthen and enhance capacities? And what has changed since COVID, and how have we tackled this? So today we have 3 different presentations to highlight some experiences. Each presentation will be 15 minutes. And then following the presentations, we will have time for clarifying questions. And then we also ask that you put in any questions that you have for the plenary. So will be using the question and answer function in Zoom and relay those to the panel so that they can respond to your ideas and comments. So we hope that through these conversations and the discussion that follows, we can identify some best practices to support capacity development and lay the groundwork to form a community to continue to exchange ideas as we move forward. So it is my pleasure to introduce our first presenter. Minnie Rafi is from WWF in the Solomon Islands. Minnie joined the WWF team in 2015 as the Marine Field Officer in the Solomon Islands. Currently, she is the program coordinator for the Sustainable Coastal Communities program. She has a background in environmental studies and specializes in biodiversity conservation and sustainable development. And so without further ado, I will go ahead and turn it over to Minnie. The floor is yours.
Sorry. Hi everyone, good evening from Solomon Islands. I'm just wondering if you guys are hearing me clearly.
We can hear you clearly. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go. Okay, I represent WWF Pacific Solomon Islands program, and I am very pleased to be part of these plenary discussions. Basically, to share with you our work program out here in the islands, and also to hear from other panelists. So, just to give you an overview of our work, this is the overview of my presentation. And you might be wondering where we're at in the Solomon Islands. This is Western Province. This is our focus area in the Solomons. We're working in currently actively with communities on Gizo Island, Kolobanga, and Simbo Island. But Vela La Vela and Ranonga are two other main islands, which are also in our focus area. So this is basically down there in the Western Province. WWF has been working there for more than 20 years. And this is because these areas are home to a greater level of biodiversity than any other part of the country. So you might be wondering about our Coral Reef Rescue initiative will be focusing on islands further in the east, not in the Western Province. In the as you can see in the other map is those big islands in the east. So yes, our program is called Sustainable Coastal Communities Program, and it is implemented in 3 integrated strategies. One is on sustainable fisheries, the other one is on financial inclusion, and the other one is on community planning. So with sustainable fisheries, we're focusing on community-based fisheries co-management, working with local fishermen, empowering them to do fisheries management. And recognizing that fisheries management will not succeed as long as people are so reliant on coastal fisheries for food security and livelihoods. The financial inclusion component, which is linked to women's economic empowerment, is an integral part of our strategy. The Community Adaptation Pathway, or CAPC, is a climate change lens, which is embedded into a broader Sustainable Coastal Communities Program. It really focuses on providing communities with a framework for longer-term thinking, intergenerational planning, and systems view of individual and community adaptation. So with our CAPC program, we have developed a deep network of support and partnership with Plan Australia, SIDT, CSIRO, and ANU. With Plan Australia and SIDT and the local implementing partner SIDT are implementing pilots in 2 other communities in the Western Province. Our partnership with them has allowed us to learn more about gender equality and social inclusion, particularly effectively around engaging people living with disability and youth. CSIRO and ANU brought both access to cutting-edge climate change, which is then combined with our local knowledge. So typically, climate change adaptation has been something that is done to communities externally, imposed by government and or other donors. But CAPC is a strength-based approach, combining community knowledge with world-leading climate adaptation science to really put communities in the driver's seat of their own plans for climate change adaptation. Embedded in our program is our community facilitator model. This model we adopted from WWF PNG, and already it has been successful in what it was anticipated for. So far, we have 11 community facilitators based out in 5 CBFM sites. So we have 2 in each of our CBFM sites, a male and a female. So being recognized as part of the WWF CBFM team, they have been capacitated through a series of capacity building sessions to fully support WWF work program on the ground. During COVID, they have been resourceful to continue the work despite a couple of lockdowns imposed by the Solomon Islands government then. There are hands and ears in the community. So we are looking on replicating this to other sites as well. How could we align learning mechanisms and platforms? CFs provide a great pathway to disseminating information and sharing the knowledge that they have gained through the various capacity training that WWF has provided. Knowledge is power. With knowledge, communities are being able to make sound, good decisions regards to management. At the same time, it is important that this knowledge is also shared to others, other partners and stakeholders, and even communities in terms of scaling out. The core of our Pacific Coastal Communities Program is fisheries management, like I've mentioned, and the spawning potential surveys helps us to assess, engage fishers, and get them to think about fisheries management. And it's a method that they're used to assess fish status of fish population, especially in data poor fisheries. And the data collected through this method helps to inform local management. So this is part of data collection under our coastal fisheries management. CF's work is about collecting field data, SPS data included, and moving forward, we are currently working with James University in Australia to try and develop a smart app phone. It is on trial at the moment. And that smart app phone will analyze photos from fish. So it will help us to do away with the challenge of IDing fish. And more importantly, the analysis can be done with the app and it can be completed in near real time with communities being able to manage the entire monitoring and reporting process by themselves to see the response of intervention they may apply, like closed seasons of tambo areas. So looking into the future, it would be worth exploring opportunities with CFs, where CFs would be trained to use tablets or smartphones to gather field data. I think there's a challenge with connectivity issues in most rural areas. And with the digital platforms, for us in the islands where connectivity is an issue, it may not be applicable as desired. Some devices and tools also may be too sophisticated for our community people to use, especially the community facilitators, and maintaining the equipment, so electronic devices at the community level may also be a challenge. So next steps, electronic data collection for monitoring. We're looking at possibilities to create custom mobile forms for tablets, which can be used for data collection, especially on socioeconomic surveys or biological data. So this, like SPS data, it will be really easy for the community to generate results from the analysis done and then have a knowledge on the impact of the interventions, especially on the socioeconomic aspect. And also moving forward, we're looking at building community facilitators network. Already we have a network in the Western Province, which is called Western Province Network for Sustainable Environment. And it is a network of NGOs, private sectors and relevant government agencies that often meet to share their work experience, lessons learned, and success stories. So just recently we started adding, inviting our CFs to be part of these meetings, and it is a learning space for them and also for them to expand their own network within with other partners that are deemed relevant for what the community plans are. And CFs have also created a network with other relevant stakeholders through trainings, workshops, and meetings. This kind of exposure really builds the community facilitators' confidence. And other partners also recognize their capacity and confidence, and they are often invited to represent them in national, regional, and even international seminars, conferences, and workshops, just to share the success stories and their learning in the work that they do in the community. So we are looking also to replicate CFs in other sites and then building their network. In terms of the digital platform, WWF, we have thrived through the COVID situation using our CFs. Despite the lockdown, we still have our work implemented smoothly in the communities, and that is because we have our community facilitators. So I guess it's not really about building on digital models, but building on the communities, especially on community facilitators, which will be more applicable for most of us, especially in Solomon Islands where connectivity will always be an issue. This is all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minnie. I invite everyone to give a virtual round of applause to Minnie for that excellent presentation. One of the things that I took away from your talk, Minnie, was really about being able to combine the importance of the role of the community facilitator, who can help really bring some of the tools and the knowledge that they've learned from other places into the community, and help to really facilitate that empowerment and support the community in being agents of change there. Yeah. So thank you very, very much for that. We will move to our next presentation, and we will have two presenters here. First is Jenny Oates, who is the Knowledge Development Manager at Blue Ventures. A key part of her role is to develop systems and outputs to share knowledge at all scales within and outside the organization, from fishers to communities to governments. And Jenny is joined by Nisa Shida. As the National Communications Officer, Nisa supports the team to amplify voices and stories of partners and small-scale fishing communities through various channels, including digital ones. And together with the team, she helps to facilitate digital learning among partner organizations through virtual spaces. And so I will turn it over to Jenny and Nisa to share their experiences from Indonesia. And I will remind attendees and participants to please put any questions that you might have to the panelists into the Q&A and the chat, and we will have plenty of time at the end for further discussion. So Jenny and Nisa, I invite you to our virtual stage.
Thank you, Alexius. Let me share my screen first. Okay, everyone, I hope you can see my screen right now and hear me clearly. I'm Nisa. I'm glad to be here today representing Blue Ventures with my colleague Jenny Oates. And today I will share some stories around how we build learning networks. I guess we should start with a quick introduction on Blue Ventures. So BV or Blue Ventures is a UK-based marine conservation organization. We work globally. We dedicate ourselves to rebuild fisheries with coastal communities. It's in Western Indian Oceans or in Coral Triangle countries like Timor-Leste or Indonesia. Hi from Indonesia. So Blue Ventures develop locally led approach to marine conservation that aims to benefit people and nature, both of them. And in places where oceans are vital, we support the communities to design solutions that fits with them, and at the same time building sustainable future for my case Indonesia marine and coastal fisheries. And in Indonesia, actually, Blue Ventures is working in cooperation with Yayasan Pesisir Lestari. So we build partnership with organizations, to design the solutions that's specific to communities that can not only meet the need of communities, but also building a sustainable future of the marine and coastal. So right now I'm showing you the maps of our partnership network that supports community-led fisheries management and marine conservation in Indonesia. As you can see in the west, in Sumatra, we work with Akar Foundation in Sumatra, and in Kalimantan, we work with Planet Indonesia and Blue Forest Foundation in mangrove restoration and conservation. And in Sulawesi, we have several partners like Forkani, Yapeka, Fonep, Komanangi, and Japesda. And you can see in the Nusa Tenggara, we also have some partners, Jari and Tananua in Flores. And in the eastern part of Indonesia, we have Baileo Foundation in Maluku. So together we work on the community-based fisheries management. We in specific communities like octopus and mud crab. And also we want to improve the livelihood security of the communities that we work together with. That is the glimpse into the Indonesian map right here in the heart of Coral Triangle. And with all the partners organizations, actually, we share the dream with these organizations to build a learning network that can help us to scale up holistic and community-led approach to marine conservation. And of course, to promote it among policymakers and donors by raising the voices of coastal communities. And how to do that, actually? Actually, before the COVID-19 pandemic, all these 12 organizations in Indonesia have the annual partner forum meeting where we bring together all the organizations in Indonesia to come together in one place, in one working location, spend several days together learning, sharing with each other. And now that the COVID-19 pandemic hit us a year ago, we tried to shift to strengthen the focus to build a virtual space of learning network. So we initiated a Kumpul Mitra, we call it. It's a regular virtual forum where all of our partners across Indonesia can share their knowledge with each other and discuss issues that impact their work in supporting the communities. And so actually, over the year, we already had 11 sessions of Kumpul Mitra covering various topics. For example, like in communications, we have storytelling class, and then we have topics on holistic approach in conservations or fisheries management, or even methods for mangrove conservation, or a talk into what is small-scale fisheries hub, collaborating with other organizations outside the partnership network. And yeah, I think it is really precious that we have gathered more than 20 people becoming speakers and sharing their stories. So it's not one-way communications, but we want to have it a forum where everyone can have the chance to share their stories. And I think it's the thank you to pandemic that we have the chance to think outside the box and not only rely on offline communications, but we try to optimize the Zoom or a digital platform like Google Meet, where all of the organizations from these 12 organizations can share, even though we have the long distance and very different locations, yeah, among the islands of Indonesia, which is really a big archipelago. And we also realized during the year that we know the challenge that not everyone is born tech savvy, or all of our partner organization is different from one another. So we take time to also give the time to learn about the platform itself. So we also improve the capacity of digital among our partners. And we also realized that the challenge is not everyone is born a speaker, not everyone is born a moderator, but we try to give everyone the chance to speak, to try to learn about moderating sessions, moderating online forum, and also speak in front of public audience. And besides Kumpul Mitra, we realized that digital will never replace face-to-face interactions. So after a year of adaptation, when travel is made possible again in Indonesia, we try to have facilitating for community exchanges as our platform for our partners and communities to share experience and learning in the field with face-to-face interactions. So far they can learn from each other about anything, basically fisheries management, coastal community organizing, stakeholder engagement, and everything is on field. We involve 9 partner organizations so far, and we involve community members as well from one place to another, consisting of fishers, data collectors, village government, and as well as octopus buyer, for example, if we talk about octopus fisheries program. And you can see in the map that this is a big island, and where we have to fly one to another island. But we're glad that despite the long journey and strict health protocol, we see that participants are very enthusiastic and eager to learn and meet with fellow organizations, fellow fishing communities, and even after that, they maintain communications as well. So it beyond the exchange, it goes beyond it, and they become a family after that. And yeah, we realized that following the strict health protocol is difficult, but we think that face-to-face interaction and field learning are really precious and worth fighting for. And I will now give the time to Jenny, my colleague, to share more on the digital platform that we are now building, the Outreach Hub. Please, Jenny.
Thank you, Nisa. Yeah, so I'm going to talk a bit about our current project in terms of the next steps that we're working on, which is the Outreach Hub. So this is a current project that we've been working on at a global scale across Blue Ventures. And it is an online digital portal for Blue Ventures staff and our partners and our networks for us to connect and learn from each other all across the world from our different experiences, and to bring these together into one place in a digital world. So I'm going to talk about the 3 steps that we have recently been undertaking to help design the Outreach Hub, because we're really keen to make sure that the hub is designed to meet the needs of the users. So we've been designing the hub through a very participatory process. So the first step is carrying out a needs assessment, which I'll talk a bit more about in a moment. The second step is looking at some of the key principles of the hub that users would like to see. And then finally, we carried out an analysis of the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to help inform the way that we would develop the hub. So talking a bit more about how we carried out the needs assessment. So we first of all started by getting everybody together from across the organization, from different countries and teams, to start brainstorming the different potential features that we could include in this new digital platform. So we were quite keen to include a learning platform, things like live courses, self-taught learning, things to do with fisheries and safeguarding courses. And then we're also keen to have some features on this new hub that would help to connect the different networks and groups that our staff and partners are part of. So things like the African Marine Conservation Leaders Platform, African Women Leaders, and Mihari, which is a platform which is a network of organizations creating locally managed marine areas in Madagascar. So we started off by brainstorming all of these different types of features that we wanted to incorporate into the hub. And then we did some audience mapping. So we thought about the different partners and people that we might want to engage with the hub, and mapped those audiences onto these different features to see what would be most useful for these different audiences. Next slide, please. Thank you. So yeah, then once we'd thought about what the key features of the hub would be, we then thought a bit more about the different principles and values that we would want to see as part of the outreach hub. And we mapped these again as a group all together onto a target. So in the middle of the target, we put all the must-have principles. Then slightly further out, we thought about the nice-to-have, and then the kind of less important features around the outside. And this was a great exercise to do because it enabled us as a group to think about what do we all feel the kind of key values that we would want to see in this hub. And the top principles that came out of this exercise that we did as a group were that, number one, the hub should definitely be easy to use for everybody that would need to interact with it. We also felt it was really important that the hub would be multi-language because we want to reach out to our staff and our partners across many different countries. I know that the previous speaker talked a bit about issues with access to digital technology in different countries and different locations. So we felt it would be really important for this outreach hub for it to be possible to view offline in areas where digital connectivity might be poor. And we also felt it would be really important to have dynamic content on the hub so it could adapt to the different needs of people and frequently be updated so that people would be continuously engaging with it, and the content on the hub would adapt to different situations and circumstances that the users might be experiencing to provide them with up-to-date content. And similar to that, we felt it would be really important for the content on the hub to be responsive to user needs. So we really wanted to incorporate an element of user feedback to make sure that the hub would be fit for purpose. And then finally, we carried out a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis to think about how we might design the process for developing the hub to take account of some of these different issues. So in terms of the strengths and the opportunities, we felt like designing this kind of tool would enable us to really connect partners and enable them to learn from each other. And it would also reduce the reliance on our own Blue Ventures staff for being the conduit for information, because having this kind of virtual tool in an online space would mean that partners could connect directly to each other without always needing to go through Blue Ventures staff. So this tool could create that direct connection between different partners all over the world. But we also identified some threats and weaknesses too. So to set up this kind of tool could take some time to actually develop it and create all of these different features that we've been talking about. And so, yeah, this may take some time to set up, and also for our staff and partners to become familiar with this new tool and how to use it. And another risk could be that if we're trying to reach too many different audiences, that might mean that this could lead to a lack of focus in the tool that we create, and it might not be fit for purpose for any of the audiences. So these are some of the issues that we felt are really important to consider in the design of the hub. So as I say, this is an ongoing project. We're still tackling all these challenges at the moment, but hoping to have a sort of first version of the hub within the next year. So we'll be taking forwards all of this input that we've gained through this participatory exercise to kind of take forwards into the process of developing and designing the outreach hub over the next year. So to wrap up the presentation from myself and Nisa, I think we've both shown that digital and face-to-face learning can really complement each other. They both have their own needs, they both fit different purposes, and they both deliver different uses, but one approach will never replace the other. We need both digital and face-to-face. And I think we've also shown that learning networks need to be inclusive. whether they're digital or face-to-face, it's really important to give everybody the chance to be involved in these kinds of networks so that they can learn from each other. That's everything from us. Thank you very much for listening, and looking forward to hearing your questions afterwards.
Thank you so much, Nisa and Jenny, for that amazing presentation and experiences from Indonesia. Jenny, you summed up exactly what I was going to say, that one of my main takeaways from your presentation was really on the need to be combining digital and in-person learning exchanges, and how one can help support and complement the other, but they are not completely interchangeable. So thank you so much for your presentation, and we will go to our next presentation. And so I will welcome Harlisa and Onis Damayanti from EDF Indonesia to our virtual stage here. Harlisa currently works as the Senior Specialist for Fisheries Information and Data with the Oceans Program of the Environmental Defense Fund, Indonesia. With this role, she is in charge of blue swimming crab data collection activity in partnership with a local university, local NGO, and surrounding communities to synthesize data into an electronic database and provide preliminary data analysis for stock assessments. In addition, she also supports other EDF science and ocean technology solutions. And Onis with EDF Indonesia works closely with local NGOs, fishers, and communities to socialize and gain broad support for fisheries management at the village level. She holds a degree in anthropology, which helps her better understand the complexities of human interactions and behavior. One of the most important aspects of her work is ensuring that messages are framed and conveyed in a way that can be easily understood. And so without further ado, I will hand it over to Onis and Harlisa, and a friendly reminder to please put any questions that you have for our panelists in the chat or the Q&A function. Thank you.
Terima kasih, Alexis, for the introduction. In these sessions, I will present our work in EDF Indonesia, and I will be using bahasa during the presentations. Pada kesempatan ini, saya, Harlisa, dan Mbak Ones akan mempresentasikan beberapa contoh pembelajaran yang kita dapatkan untuk peningkatan kapasitas perikanan skala kecil selama pandemi COVID-19 yang kita kerjakan di Indonesia. Sebagai perkenalan dari EDF Indonesia, beberapa pekerjaan yang telah kita kerjakan di sini, kita telah bekerja di 2 provinsi yang ada di Indonesia. Jika dilihat secara geografis, ini adalah bagian Indonesia bagian barat, yaitu di Provinsi Lampung dan juga Provinsi Jawa Barat. Untuk pekerjaan-pekerjaan kami yang ada di lapangan, kita sangat bergantung erat dengan beberapa mitra-mitra kami yang ada di daerah, baik itu dari LSM lokal, masyarakat, kemudian pemerintah daerah, dan juga beberapa universitas-universitas yang ada di 2 lokasi tersebut. Kemudian kita telah membangun tata kelola dan pengelolaan perikanan yang efektif melalui lembaga pengelolaan bersama. Dalam hal ini disebut dengan KPPRB atau Komite Pengelolaan Perikanan Rajungan Berkelanjutan, yang di-lead langsung oleh DKP Provinsi dan telah di-SK-kan oleh Gubernur. Kemudian di dalam komite pengelolaan tersebut juga terdapat beberapa kelompok kerja yang disesuaikan dengan bidang-bidang yang ada di DKP Provinsi. Pada komite tersebut kita juga proses pengambilan keputusan dilakukan secara partisipatif, kemudian perencanaan dan pelaksanaan pengelolaannya juga telah dituangkan dalam dokumen rencana aksi pengelolaan perikanan rajungan secara berkelanjutan yang juga telah disahkan oleh Gubernur. Kemudian pekerjaan kita yang lain adalah pemberdayaan dan inklusi masyarakat dengan fokus pada nelayan, kemudian perempuan-perempuan dan juga pemuda.
daerah. Kita telah melakukan asesmen secara menyeluruh terhadap peran-peran perempuan pada tiap rantai yang ada pada perikanan rajungan, baik dari rantai produksi, pemasaran, dan juga penjualan. Kemudian dari asesmen yang telah kita lakukan diperoleh beberapa rekomendasi yang sangat valuable, termasuk di dalamnya untuk pengembangan alternatif livelihood. Kemudian pengumpulan data, baik data biologi maupun data ekonomi, untuk membantu untuk memantau indikator kinerja perikanan yang telah kita lakukan sebelumnya dan telah dimasukkan ke dalam dokumen rencana aksi, sehingga kita memastikan bahwa keputusan-keputusan pengelolaan yang kita ambil ke depan, yang komite ambil ke depan adalah berbasiskan sains. Kemudian mungkin sebelum kita paparkan lebih jauh mengenai beberapa teknologi yang kita gunakan atau yang kita manfaatkan selama pandemi, kita akan menjelaskan sedikit penjelasan saja terkait dengan kenapa rajungan menjadi komoditas yang dikelola untuk di Lampung dan juga di Jawa Barat. Nah, dilihat dari presentasi ini, kita bisa lihat bahwa rajungan ini adalah merupakan salah satu komoditas yang ada di urutan ketiga penyumbang ekspor terbesar yang ada di Indonesia. Kemudian dari perikanan rajungan ini banyak sekali masyarakat yang bergantung di dalamnya, baik dari laki-laki, perempuan, maupun pemuda-pemuda. Kemudian jika dilihat secara biologi, rajungan ini termasuk dalam spesies yang cepat pulih. Kemudian rajungan ini juga merupakan spesies yang pertumbuhannya sangat cepat dan memiliki proses reproduksi yang sangat-sangat melimpah. Kemudian dari sisi preferensi pasar, dari buyer-buyer yang ada, buyer-buyer yang memiliki minat dengan perikanan rajungan, mereka juga punya attention untuk membeli rajungan yang berukuran besar, minimal telah melakukan minimal telah matang gonat, kemudian juga mengacu pada kualitas yang cukup bagus dan berbasiskan sustainable product. Kemudian dari perikanan rajungan ini, seperti yang saya sebutkan tadi, bahwa banyak sekali komponen-komponen masyarakat yang terlibat di dalamnya, mulai dari nelayan, kemudian juga perempuan-perempuan yang bekerja di pendaratan-pendaratan rajungan dan juga di minipen. Kemudian selama kurang lebih 1 tahun ini kita pada saat dunia dihantam oleh pandemi COVID-19 termasuk Indonesia, kita telah beradaptasi dengan cukup baik. Di lapangan kita memperkenalkan beberapa aplikasi-aplikasi untuk membuat kita tetap terkoneksi dengan baik dengan masyarakat-masyarakat yang ada di lokasi pekerjaan-pekerjaan kita. Dan di sini mitra-mitra lokal kami seperti yang ada di Lampung dari Mitra Bentala, kemudian ada community organizer, dan juga partner kita yang ada di Jawa Barat, kita bekerja sama dengan Serikat Nelayan Indonesia. Kita memperkenalkan penggunaan Zoom meeting kepada masyarakat-masyarakat nelayan. Kemudian kita juga ada grup WhatsApp untuk tetap saling memberikan informasi. Dan juga pada saat kita melaksanakan beberapa pelatihan, kita juga telah memanfaatkan fitur Google Form Survey untuk mendapatkan masukan dari beberapa stakeholder. Dan pada proses pendataan biologi dan ekonomi untuk memantau indikator kinerja perikanan, kita telah menggunakan aplikasi Fisheries App untuk pengumpulan data. Dan aplikasi ini juga berbasis smartphone. Seperti kita ketahui bahwa 7 dari 10 orang penduduk dunia adalah pengguna smartphone, sehingga dengan menggunakan smartphone ini sangat-sangat potensial untuk mendukung pekerjaan kita yang ada di lapangan. Kemudian penggunaan aplikasi Fisheries Apps ini juga merupakan transisi dari pendataan menggunakan kertas kemudian ke electronic monitoring. Dan selama proses pendataan dengan menggunakan aplikasi tersebut sangat-sangat memudahkan pekerjaan enumerator dalam menginput dan mengirimkan data. Jika sebelumnya proses pendataan dan penginputan data harus memakai form Excel dan menggunakan laptop, sekarang sudah jauh-jauh sangat fleksibel dan lebih praktis. Kemudian kelebihan dari aplikasi ini juga beberapa tadi yang sudah dijelaskan bahwa salah satu keterbatasan terbesar adalah ketersediaan internet yang ada di lapangan. Dari aplikasi Fisheries App ini kita telah memberikan fitur bahwa ketika internet connection tidak tersedia di lapangan, kita tetap bisa menginput data, tapi ketika mendapatkan internet yang cukup, barulah data bisa dikirim. Dan bagaimana kita menggunakan teknologi dalam pengelolaan perikanan, beberapa kegiatan-kegiatan yang telah kita kerjakan untuk mendukung program-program yang ada di lapangan, seperti yang pertama di sini adalah pengembangan rencana aksi pengelolaan perikanan rajungan di Provinsi Jawa Barat. Ini kita adopsi dari proses-proses dan kita replikasi dari proses-proses yang ada di Lampung. Namun hal yang berbeda pada proses yang ada di Jawa Barat, bahwa semua proses dari pengenalan pengelolaan perikanan, kemudian mengarrange beberapa analisis atau mengidentifikasi beberapa masalah-masalah yang ada di lapangan terkait dengan perikanan virtual. Kemudian dari proses-proses pertemuan-pertemuan virtual tersebut, kita memanfaatkan fitur-fitur yang telah disediakan seperti breakout room untuk berdiskusi lebih fokus. Kemudian kita menggunakan Google Survey dan juga grup WhatsApp. Kemudian proses yang kita kerjakan secara virtual ini sangat didukung oleh beberapa partner kita yang ada di lapangan, baik dari pemerintah provinsi, kemudian dari masyarakat itu sendiri, baik nelayan, dan juga organisasi-organisasi LSM-LSM yang ada di daerah. Dan beberapa hasil atau beberapa hasil yang sangat-sangat penting yang telah diperoleh dari beberapa pertemuan virtual tersebut, seperti tujuan pengelolaan dan sasaran pengelolaan yang telah dituangkan dalam dokumen rencana aksi pengelolaan perikanan rajungan, dan di dalamnya juga sudah mencakup mengenai performance indikator, baik untuk indikator biologi maupun indikator sosial ekonomi. Kemudian yang terakhir, kita juga telah mendapatkan, melalui pertemuan tersebut, kita telah mendapatkan bagaimana tindakan-tindakan pengelolaan yang akan dikerjakan, baik dari segi fishing goal maupun dari segi supply chain information. Dan selanjutnya ini adalah roadmap proses pengembangan rencana aksi yang ada di Jawa Barat, seperti yang saya sebutkan tadi, mulai dari sesi pertama, kemudian sampai sekarang di sesi kelima, penyusunan draft semuanya dilakukan secara virtual. Dan ini adalah salah satu kegiatan yang kita kerjakan di Jawa Barat untuk training ke enumerator. Nah, seperti yang sudah dikerjakan di Lampung, kita juga replikasi di Jawa Barat terkait dengan pendataan, dan kita melakukan proses training enumerator secara virtual. Dan dengan bantuan partner kami, yaitu dari Serikat Nelayan Indonesia, juga dilakukan secara hybrid. Kemudian proses pelatihan ini juga didukung oleh KKP, dalam hal ini Balai Riset Perikanan Laut, juga memberikan materi presentasi, materi training secara online. Dan selanjutnya yaitu kita juga telah berkonsultasi dengan beberapa expert nasional, baik dari KKP maupun dari university, dan semua proses konsultasi yang kita kerjakan melalui virtual. Proses konsultasi ini kita kerjakan untuk memastikan bahwa langkah-langkah pengelolaan yang kita ambil ke depan di lapangan itu sudah berdasarkan dengan sains, dan dari pertemuan-pertemuan ini dapatkan beberapa rekomendasi-rekomendasi. Dan selanjutnya saya serahkan ke Mbak Ones. Silakan Mbak.
Ya, terima kasih Lisa. Di sini saya akan bercerita sedikit mengenai konteks pelibatan nelayan di dalam pertemuan-pertemuan kita yang sebagian besar itu online ya. Jadi ada beberapa kesempatan nelayan ini untuk ikut pertukaran begitu, pertukaran antara nelayan Lampung dengan nelayan Jawa Barat ya. Ini jadi karena Jawa Barat akan melakukan rencana aksi pengelolaan perikanan rajungan yang sama seperti yang di Lampung, jadi perlu ada seperti berbagi informasi dan pengetahuan bagaimana nelayan-nelayan Lampung itu terlibat dalam pengelolaan perikanan rajungan berkelanjutan. Nah, ini kita adaptasi online, jadi kita dibantu dengan lokal NGO Mitra Bentala di sini untuk mengorganisir nelayan-nelayannya yang di Lampung dan juga SNI nelayan di Jawa Barat. Selain itu, selain pertukaran, kita juga next slide mungkin bisa. Kita juga terlibat di dalam kegiatan internasional panel. Jadi ada nelayan dan enumerator dari Lampung itu ada di dalam diskusi panel di United Nations Food System Summit. Jadi dari berbagai negara begitu kita berbagi mengenai apa yang sudah kita kerjakan di dalam di tingkat desa begitu. Nah, ini menarik karena mereka sangat vokal ya di dalam panel itu dan bisa saling mendengar juga di perikanan skala kecil di negara-negara lain. Selanjutnya untuk di level nasional bersama dengan SFP dan juga Mitra Bentala kami memfasilitasi begitu dialog antara nelayan rajungan dan juga dengan pemerintah di konteks ini adalah DJPT untuk membahas mengenai bagaimana pengelolaan perikanan rajungan itu dilakukan dan bagaimana nelayan ini bisa dilibatkan di dalam kebijakan pengambilan keputusan gitu. Nah, selain itu di keuntungan dan tantangan dalam adaptasi teknologi ini mungkin tadi sudah sedikit disampaikan ya oleh Jenny dan Nisa di presentasi sebelumnya. Jadi sebetulnya keuntungannya adalah teknologi ini dapat digunakan di berbagai aspek. Jadi maksudnya adalah dia dapat mengakomodir perbedaan pengetahuan dan juga menawarkan keluasan fleksibilitas begitu. Karena kita tahu nelayan itu mungkin akan lebih free di waktu malam, terus kemudian mereka akan sangat sulit sekali begitu ya meninggalkan desa untuk ke kota jika kita offline, tapi ini online itu sebetulnya mempermudah bagi mereka khususnya di tingkat nelayan. Terus kemudian ini juga teknologi itu mempermudah dari awalnya asumsi kita akan sulit ya orang itu mengadaptasi teknologi, tapi pada akhirnya seiring dengan berjalannya waktu ini tuh bisa diadaptasi pada akhirnya gitu. Khususnya di antara masyarakat perkotaan dan perdesaan itu pasti ada perbedaan sudut pandang gitu. Nah, hal lain adalah jadi nelayan sebelumnya itu platform yang mereka gunakan Facebook, tapi sekarang itu sangat aktif sekali ya untuk di WhatsApp, terus kemudian sharing webinar itu di WhatsApp. Jadi mereka bisa mengikuti informasi, belajar hal-hal baru, tidak hanya terbatas pada perikanan rajungan, tapi perikanan-perikanan lain yang tersedia di webinar. Nah, begitu selanjutnya sebetulnya ini juga teknologi juga sebagai medium buat kita untuk menyuarakan aspirasi nelayan atau masyarakat ke tingkat pemerintah gitu. Jadi sebelumnya mereka itu sangat susah gitu untuk di level nasional misalnya. Nah, ini lebih aksesnya lebih mudah. Nah, tantangannya sebetulnya kalau untuk tantangan ya di Indonesia pasti untuk biaya internet dan juga untuk koneksi internet itu belum semua tersedia, dan juga terjemah. Jadi beberapa kegiatan itu tuh tersedia dalam bahasa Inggris, cuman mungkin untuk ketersediaan bahasanya masih terbatas. Lalu juga adaptasi dengan teknologi baru. Kalau seperti yang Lisa tadi ceritakan, menggunakan aplikasi pendataan di handphone itu tuh beberapa enumerator masih seperti belum terbiasa gitu pada awalnya. Jadi mereka masih menggunakan paper base gitu. Nah, itu juga perlu proses. Nah, tantangan lain yaitu pertemuan online itu tuh sangat susah ya untuk memfasilitasi negosiasi dan memastikan bahwa peserta itu tuh aktif berpartisipasi. Nah, jadi untuk menutup ini juga ada COVID ini memaksa kita gitu ya untuk bekerja secara berbeda begitu. Jadi kita sangat terbantu sekali oleh partner lokal, NGO lokal yang tinggal di sana gitu. Dan juga pengumpulan informasi itu harus berbeda dari satu masyarakat di stakeholder yang berbeda begitu untuk mengakomodir keterbatasan. Mungkin itu saja dari kami. Terima kasih.
Thank you so much, Onis and Harlisa. Another inspiring presentation this day. Some of the key things that I heard from you all was really about this, again, the combination of different tools and how we can be using tools to support science-based management, and also these tools to help foster exchange of information and really help to empower those local community organizations and fisher leaders as well in making decisions that impact their fisheries and livelihoods. So thank you so much to you both. We would like, Jenny, can you go ahead and reshare your screen? We would like to hear from you all as attendees. So if you can please type in the chat here a little bit about how you have used digital tools in your work. We know that you all bring a lot of experience here as well. And so what digital tools have you used in your work, whether that's to advance science-based management or to facilitate exchange in markets, et cetera? We'd love to hear about what your experiences have been. So invite you to share in the chat. And I will read out some responses that we get from you as we start to transition over into our plenary conversation. Some of the things that I heard from from these three very inspiring presentations was really how central people are. And how local communities, local fishers, and local fish workers must be at the center of all activities to support and enhance capacities and to support them in their ability to drive change. And I also heard a lot about local partnerships and the importance of working with local organizations, local civil society to design solutions that work for them. And we've also talked a little bit about a number of the challenges that technology does bring, the digital divide, lack of connectivity, et cetera, and how having these community facilitators and key conduits and local organizations into communities can help to overcome some of those challenges. So I would, can you go to the next slide, please, Jenny? So here in this plenary conversation, we'd like to use this time to discuss with our panelists some ways that we can continue to grow and expand these approaches as we move into our post-COVID world. So some questions that come to mind are, what have we learned? How can we combine digital learning with in-person engagements for greatest impact? And how can we take the tools and approaches that we heard about today and bring these solutions to scale? So in particular, we'd like to identify some areas where we can work together to share lessons learned about what has worked and what has not to ensure that capacity building efforts are effective and benefit local communities. So again, I invite you to put any questions that you might have in the Q&A box or in the chat on Zoom. We know that there's a lot of experience among attendees to this webinar and within the range of stakeholders who work with small-scale fishing communities. And we would like to use this time to identify some solutions and actions that we can take together, and to really be able to keep this conversation going. We've heard 3 really outstanding examples, and already I see in the chat some exchange happening of wanting to share some ideas. And so next slide, please, Jenny. I'd like to invite you all to consider visiting and joining the Small Scale Fisheries Resource and Collaboration Hub, which is a new interactive online space that can provide a way for us to continue to have this conversation. The Hub is an online, multilingual, and interactive space that supports small-scale fishing actors achieve the small-scale fisheries guidelines and capacity building efforts within their communities. You can go to the next slide, Jenny. And on the Hub, you can find tools and resources that come from a number of different organizations, including fisher organizations, conservation groups, and expert advisors on the resource library. And then you can also connect with other small-scale fisher members in the discussion forum to ask questions or share your own stories and experiences. So following this webinar, we will be creating a space on the Hub to share the takeaways and the tools that have been shared. And we invite you all to visit and join and contribute further ideas. So we'd love to hear those virtual tools that you all are using, what learning networks exist and we can be connected to further for further exchange of ideas. So I would like to invite all of our presenters back here to the screen, if people can turn on their cameras. Maria, can you let me know if we have any questions for the panel yet?
Yes, we had a question earlier that was answered by Jim that it would be good to hear. It was actually specifically on the SPS app that Jim then answered on behalf of Minnie. Maybe it's even worth Jim introducing himself and introducing the app, because it's it triggered some interest there by Halissa from EDF.
Excellent. Yes, so I see the question here. So it's related to the identification, measurement, and inform of the SPR value of the fish by using AI. And the question is, how many species can be identified and how to validate the result? Minnie or Jim, would you like to chime in and share so that it's captured on the recording and in the translation?
Hi, Minnie, I can take this one if you want.
Please go ahead.
So yeah, so originally, so it was the app has funded through the WWF Ocean Practice Innovation Fund. So it was a small grant that was designed to test the theory to see if it would actually work. So I guess the good news is, you know, even though we had very limited travel, we've managed to develop, or JCU's managed to develop an app that can identify 10 target species, and accuracy is 95+% for those 10 species. And essentially, instead of having a pen and paper, our data collection people will actually just take a photo of an individual fish. They line up 2 marks on the app as they take the photo, and that provides a length estimate. And then the image of the fish is sent to the cloud, where a cloud computing system actually identifies the fish, stores the image of the fish and the estimated length. And then that information can automatically be run through the spawn and potential ratio calculation process. We have historically relied on Jeremy Prince to actually do that analysis for us. So we're taking something that has traditionally taken over 12 months to analyse to something that will be able to be analysed by the individual communities whenever they hit the button on the app. So it is pretty neat. The main restriction has been gaining images. So because we couldn't travel last year, we were limited to the 10 target species. We had sufficient photos or images to train or to conduct the machine learning process. So we actually shared our image library with the South Pacific Commission and also with ANCORS in University of Wollongong. So it's a bit of a sharing around of images, which seems to be the limiting factor for all this type of work. So if anyone's got image libraries they want to share and add some species to the process, feel free to reach out and we can work on some new species next financial year. And as Maria pointed out, the information around the spawning potential ratios on the shortcut to the Barefoot Ecologist website, which I'm sure I saw it. There we go. So barefootecologist.com. They've got all of the training manuals, the analysis processes for the spawning potential ratios, and it's actually in Indonesian as well. So there's some products that are already there translated.
Very cool. Thank you so much for sharing, Jim. And what a cool way to use technology to empower local communities to be able to make those decisions basically instantaneously and to have that database readily available. I do see a question in here that I'd like to hear from all panelists on around how can the tools that we've discussed today strengthen learning both within and across communities. So we know that it takes a lot of effort to be able to build these solutions and work very closely with communities. Jenny, you shared a little bit about the needs assessment process that Blue Ventures has been going through and kind of the ongoing engagement with communities. So we've discussed a lot about the efforts to build the model, but I'm also curious about how do you maintain that moving forward and how do you continue that momentum with these communities? So curious if our presenters here can share a little bit about how you think about keeping this and moving it forward and then even sharing it with others. We've heard a little bit about learning networks and the importance there, but curious if anything sparked today as you listened to your fellow presenters. Would love to hear from all of you, but I will not call on people. So please feel free to unmute if you would like to respond.
I don't mind making a start on that one, Alexis. I think the key really is being adaptive to the needs of people. And I mentioned this a little in my presentation, but I think if you just provide the same content and don't change it, then people will stop looking at it. But to keep the momentum going and interest, I think it's really important to keep on refreshing the information that you provide and the types of issues that you might be addressing to be responsive to the needs of the communities that you're serving. And a great example of that, I think, would be during the COVID pandemic. A lot of organizations quickly pivoted to providing resource pages of relevant information about how communities could address some of the challenges that they were facing with the COVID pandemic. And Blue Ventures was one of the organizations that did that, but I know many other organizations did the same and immediately started providing access to tools and resources that communities needed at that time to deal with that situation. So from my perspective, it would be responsive to what's happening in the world so that the momentum continues because people are going to engage with the issues that are relevant to them at that particular time. But yeah, very keen to hear from the other panelists about your thoughts on that as well.
Maybe I want to add to what Jenny said a little bit. Also, it's already mentioned by our colleague from EDF as well, that actually we need to meet people where they are. I mean, when we know what content it is, and we need to choose the distribution channel that is for the right place to the right people. I mean, for example, one of our partners in West Sumbawa, they try to connect with Facebook group, for example, and then it's about choosing the right channel for the right people. And for example, also we have to address the importance of local partners as well, where we see that digital cannot touch this one communities, and then there would be a community organizer living in with the communities. I think, yeah, it's meet people where they are. Thank you.
Thank you both. I see a lot of nodding. Would any of our other panelists like to add? Ones, I see you off mute. Go ahead.
Ya, terima kasih. Melanjutkan ya. Jadi sebetulnya kami baru menyadari ketika ada COVID dan harus mengadaptasi teknologi ini betapa pentingnya pendampingan di tingkat lokal. Jadi lokal NGO itu sangat berperan sekali ya terhadap keberlangsungan pekerjaan-pekerjaan kita di masyarakat. Itu yang pertama, dan yang kedua yang tidak kalah pentingnya ya ini bagaimana aplikasi ini bisa maksudnya gimana ya? Sebentar, maaf. Jadi selain aspek pendampingan juga karena kita tidak bisa datang ke lokasi, jadi penting untuk penguatan kapasitas bagi kita punya community organizer ya, pendamping lapangan di desa gitu, penguatan kapasitas bagi mereka, baik itu terhadap penggunaan teknologinya ataupun konten-konten pengetahuan terhadap perikanan, pengelolaan perikanan. Nah itu jadi meskipun kita perlu bekerja ekstra, tapi penguatan kapasitas bagi mereka itu juga tidak kalah penting untuk mereka bekal mereka yang bisa diberikan kepada masyarakat.
Dan sedikit menambahkan juga, mungkin pada saat meeting, karena mungkin pasti semua orang sudah jenuh ya, kadang sudah jenuh kalau meeting online-nya terkadang kita laksanakan 5 hari seminggu, kemudian dalam sehari juga 2-4 jam, itu sangat melelahkan. Jadi beberapa pendekatan-pendekatan lain mungkin pada saat meeting juga dibuat lebih kreatif, dibuat lebih sefokus mungkin. Kalau misalkan ada beberapa isu yang kita mau diskusikan, mungkin sebelum pertemuan kita share topiknya apa, sehingga para peserta juga memiliki persiapan di tempat mereka masing-masing sebelum bergabung ke diskusi online. Jadi dibuat pada saat pertemuan online dibuat seefektif mungkin, dan kita juga memanfaatkan beberapa tools yang lebih menarik dan partisipatif pada saat pembahasan. Kita buat lebih partisipatif, mereka bisa secara langsung memberikan input baik melalui Google Slide misalnya ataupun dari chat.
Excellent. Thank you all so much. So I hear a couple of things there. One about how the local NGO role and the role of those community facilitators is absolutely critical. And we also need to be building community capacity of those local leaders to really serve as intermediaries really between some of these digital tools and online global learning into local communities. And they can help ensure that they are contextualized and adapted to meet the local needs. Also hearing a lot about making sure that we're responsive to needs of communities and really meeting people where they are and ensuring active participation. I know that Zoom fatigue is definitely a real thing. Minnie, I see you are off of mute. Would you like to add something?
I think I would just like to add on to what the others are saying. Looking at our context, basing on our context, I think apart from capacity building on how to use those platforms or the digital tools, the other thing would be to provide the equipment, like for example, laptops or smartphones, because here it's a bit expensive for community to access it for themselves. So it's more on just training them on how to use the platforms, but also providing the necessary equipments that would enable them to use those kind of platforms. And I also would like to reiterate, accessing online global learning platforms and also at the same time meeting the community needs. I think that's all I would like to share.
Yes, thank you, Minnie, for highlighting the need for infrastructure as well. So the equipment, yes, and also as Minnie highlighted, that internet connectivity in many rural communities is low. And so ensuring offline access and an ability to connect and bring, when you're able to get online, sort of what Jim was just talking about, and Harlisa as well, you can input data offline, and then when you go somewhere with internet, it has the ability to upload then. So making sure that we have systems like that to help support. I see a question in here returning to, oh goodness, I've just lost it. Returning to the subject of AI, and this is actually a very important question around using technology for data collection and storing that information in the cloud. One of our attendees has found that fisheries departments and regional countries or scientists are sometimes reluctant to use such tools for data collection. I'm guessing perhaps because of privacy issues, et cetera. And so I'm curious if anyone has any thoughts on uploading information to the cloud and sharing information more broadly, and what sort of challenges have you run into, how have you overcome those, et cetera.
I know that
oh, good. Jenny,
Blue Ventures has been, I was just going to say that Blue Ventures has been starting to trial some approaches to mobile, using mobile technology for monitoring fisheries data in Indonesia. And I just wondered if you wanted to say a little about that, Nisa, as to how well that has gone down with communities, but also with governments and fisheries departments.
Yeah, thank you, Jenny. Actually, it's still in the very early stage that we want to shift. So before, the data collectors in the field work together with fishery to collect data of octopus catch, their octopus catch, through manually paper and pen. But we try to now shifting to mobile monitoring using Kobo Toolbox applications. And right now it's still in the early stage that we train some of our partners to then train the community members to do the mobile monitoring. So I think we can see in the next, in the upcoming months, I guess it will be start to trialing with the local data collectors in the communities. But I think we are optimistic because the feedback that we're getting, they are really interested and it will make the job easier as well. But there's a little effort in the beginning, of course, with adaptation with tablet and yeah, with the digital. But I think we are really optimistic that we can implement this in the future for more partners in Indonesia. So I think that's the update that I can share for now. Thank you, Jenny.
Ya, mungkin menambahkan sedikit terkait dengan sharing data atau terkait dengan privasi yang kita lakukan di Indonesia ketika kita menggunakan aplikasi pengumpulan data melalui aplikasi yang ada di smartphone dan masuk ke cloud kita sebenarnya data-data yang kita atau data-data field yang ada di dalam aplikasi itu merupakan data field yang kita masukkan berdasarkan protokol pendataan yang telah dikembangkan oleh pemerintah. Jadi semua data yang kita ambil adalah data yang memang sesuai dengan protokol yang sudah dikembangkan oleh pemerintah. Kemudian dari cloud kita memberikan akses dari peneliti yang ada di KKP, kita memberikan akses secara khusus untuk bisa mengakses data-data tersebut secara real time. Dan juga ke depan kita sebenarnya ingin mengintegrasikan, jadi data-data yang kita kumpulkan melalui aplikasi Fisheries App ini nanti ke depan dipersiapkan untuk bisa terkoneksi langsung ke dalam database yang dimiliki oleh KKP itu sendiri atau pemerintah dalam hal ini. Itu pendekatan yang kita kerjakan.
Excellent. Thank you both very much. We have another question in here that kind of gets back to a digital technology divide topic. So the question is, are there any tools that can be used for illiterate fishing communities to connect those in such learning sessions? So while they can share, so that they can share their success stories with each other. So a lot of these online platforms do require a certain extent of being able to read and write rather than audio visual. And so can folks elaborate a little bit on some that can be used, some tools that you are familiar with or approaches that you have used to also reach fishing community members who may be illiterate to help facilitate their sharing of their stories and experiences? Onis, I'm thinking about some of the experiences that you were highlighting where fishers were able to share their experiences at the Food Systems Summit and with the national government. I wonder if you can elaborate about how you helped prepare what platforms you used and how you helped prepare those individuals to be able to speak on those platforms.
Ya, baik, terkait dengan hal itu, sayangnya kita belum menemukan aplikasi yang bisa mengakomodir khususnya untuk nelayan yang buta huruf ya. Tapi biasanya kita karena mereka itu biasanya di pertemuan atau misalkan mengakses teknologi itu secara komunal, satu handphone buat di situ ada 2-3 nelayan. Nah itu biasanya selama kita menggunakan audio yang memadai itu bisa diterima. Karena di beberapa tempat di Indonesia juga tidak semuanya bisa berbicara dengan bahasa Indonesia. Misalnya mungkin mereka menggunakan bahasa daerah, tapi jika mendengar menggunakan bahasa Indonesia itu bisa dipahami, hanya saja untuk mengungkapkan bahasa Indonesianya mereka sulit. Jadi memang biasanya strategi kita di situ ketika ada pertemuan secara online begitu, tidak hanya satu orang saja nelayan, tapi ada beberapa. Jadi mereka bisa saling memberi panduan begitu.
Thank you very much. I'm afraid that we are almost out of time here, and so I'm afraid I have to wrap us up. Thank you all for such an inspiring set of presentations, for sharing your thoughts and your lessons and your approaches with us. I certainly am walking away with some ideas brewing around how we can continue to really leverage these experiences and scale them as we move into this post-COVID world. And we're able to meet in person again and be able to combine these new digital tools with these in-person experiences for greater impact and to the benefit of small-scale fishing communities. So I would like to invite everyone to first give a Zoom virtual reaction and thank you to all of our speakers today. I would again like to thank TBTI for this opportunity. And then I invite you all to visit the SSF hub, ssfhub.org. It is multilingual and you can have it translated into a number of languages, not all dialects, unfortunately, but a number of different languages. And as I mentioned, we will be setting up a space there for us to continue to be sharing stories and ideas and lessons learned and best practices as we move into this space. And once you get to the site, you can actually join and create a profile and meet others who are working with and for small-scale fishing communities to bring this forward. So thank you all so much for an amazing session. I hope that you all have a good evening or remainder of your day, depending on where you are in the world. And thank you all again so much. It has been a real pleasure to be here with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexis. Thank you, everyone.